Hello, everyone, wherever you may be. I'm Scott Blair, and this is a special edition of 16 Pole Racing's Finding Value. It's special in a couple of ways. First of all, it's the first of two podcasts that we're going to analyze several different runners for the Kentucky Derby this weekend. And also, it's going to be our first video cast. We haven't ever done one of those before. Everything's been all audio. And so we're going to analyze these horses. We're not necessarily going to give you plays. We're going to save that for social media this weekend. But we're going to try to give you guys some insight on these different horses that we have picked out. So let me get the guys introduced. First, from the Spa City, we've got the horse racing ninja, Tracy White. Tracy, how's it there in Hot Springs?
Hey, hi everybody's doing great. Good to
Good.
see you.
Good to see you too. Down from the head of the research department, if you look very closely back there behind him, you can see him all the books, the volumes of books that he has. The research analyst, the head guy, Mike Leonard. Mike, how is it down there in Texas?
It's beautiful today here. It's good to see you guys. See being the key word.
Yeah, we haven't done that before. So we're excited about this. So let's get it started. We're going to analyze 5 horses here in the first podcast, and then we'll follow it up with a second one where we're going to do 5 more. And kind of working through the progressions pretty much through the horses that had the longest odds with little interest up to the horses that had the lowest odds and the most interest. So we're going to start with Mystik Dan, one that we're all familiar with because we've seen him at Oaklawn. Mike, take it away on Mystik Dan.
All right, thanks, Scott. So, as you said, Mystik Dan has been progressing through the 3-year-old races at Oaklawn Park. We will discuss, obviously, Fierceness, the favorite in this race, because the Derby kind of starts with him. But if you look at buyer speed figures, there's only one horse besides Fierceness that has a buyer this year over 100, and that's Mystik Dan from the Southwest back on February 3rd. He had a gold rail. Everybody talks about it was a gold rail, and he got the perfect trip and so forth, which he did. But it was a slow pace, and he pressed a slow pace and still closed into it. I always think that's important for a horse to be able to close into a slow pace. He did run a 101 buyer. His Brisk figure, which we focus on a little bit more, was also a 101. There's a chance of rain on Friday and Saturday. And if the track comes up muddy or sloppy at Churchill, then I think everyone should give him a look. He's 20-1 morning line. There are some knocks against him. We're going to talk about knocks against a lot of horses as we go through these. I'm not sure Golden Sense is a classic distance sire, but give him a look at 20-1. If the track comes up a little wet, he's going to be pressing the pace. There should be some speed for him to make up some ground on. I think Hernandez will have him along the rail, saving ground in the early part of the race. So don't go to sleep on Mystik Dan at 20-1.
Okay. So you think he's and that's where I had that in my questions. Where do you think he's going to be on the back stretch?
Well, I mean, since he's coming out of the 3-hole, there's no speed. Well, I mean, Dornish is going to go, we think. So and Sierra Leone is not going to drop back. So I think Mystik Dan can just break forwardly and work his way over to the rail pretty quickly. Get around Sierra Leone and then just be. He may be mid pack, and again, with a 20-horse field, mid pack is 10th, right? So he may be 6th, 7th along the rail. He may be 10th, 11th, but he should get over to the rail, in my opinion, and save ground.
Okay, Tracy, what are your thoughts on Mystik Dan?
Well, along the same lines as what Mike was talking about, as far as the golden rail that he had in the Southwest Stakes. And of course, that was a muddy track. And maybe if it comes up muddy or sloppy, maybe he'll have a shot. I'm still not really sold on Mystik Dan, even if the track comes up sloppy. So I just don't, although Kenneth McPeak and Brian Hernandez have been a very good trainer jockey combo this year. They've done really well. But I'm going to be off of Mystik Dan. I just don't think he's going to be able to match up with some of these others, even if the track is sloppy.
Okay, and to wrap up on Mystic Dan, the things that I would say, the things that I saw that were positive about him was he has won over the Churchill surface. He has done well on sloppy surfaces, and as you guys were talking, I was looking one more time at Weather Underground, and boy, I'm telling you, it looks like it's becoming more and more likely that we're going to have an off track on Saturday. Now, of course, that could change, but right now they're forecasting rain. And so anyway, I just think that the conditions could lend themselves to help him. All right, we're going to go to another horse that we have seen at Oaklawn, Just Steel, and we're going to let Mike start again. Mike, what did you like about Just Steel?
Well, good old coach Lucas does not shy away from the starting gate. This horse has already run 11 times. This will be his 12th start. Um, he is improving. He's out of Justify. So he definitely has the breeding to get the 1.25 miles. Keith Asmussen is getting his first Derby start. Keith has had an outstanding year at Oaklawn, kind of surpassing expectations from probably everyone except himself and his dad, probably. But he's really become a solid jockey. I don't think he'll, ride tentatively at all. Just Steel improved in that Arkansas Derby, ran a solid second to Muth, who probably would be the co-favorite or second choice if Muth were able to run in the Kentucky Derby. Um, like I said, he's improving. He's bred to go the distance. He's got to win at Churchill. And if you notice on his workouts, you don't see this very often anymore by trainers, but he's had two 1 mile workouts. And so coach is putting some stamina in him. Again, I'm not picking him like that's my horse, but he's 20-1. And there's always a bomber or two that hit the board. And I think he's a candidate to do just that.
Absolutely. And I heard it phrased this way a little earlier this week. The coach, when there's a dance, his horses dance. They don't sit on the sidelines, right? They're not just sitting there looking at the girls. They're out there dancing. And you're right. He's heavily tested. Tracy, did you have any comments about Just Steel? Anything that you see about him that you like or concerns you?
Yeah, I mean, I like Just Steel at long odds. Probably have him in some of my picks somewhere. His Arkansas Derby was, he had really good numbers in the Arkansas Derby, ran really well. My biggest concern with well, I've got two concerns. He hasn't had a break at all I mean, he's ran since July 15th. It's as far as what's showing up on the form at Saratoga. He's been running ever since. He hadn't really had a break. That concerns me a little bit. That's typical for a Dwayne Lucas horse, however. And the other concern I have is even though Keith Asmussen has had a really good year and really improved, man, he's up in the Kentucky Derby for the first time as a young, inexperienced rider. That concerns me a little bit.
Okay. And go back to Mike, and maybe I missed you saying this, but don't you think he's going to be kind of mid-pack right there where Mystic Dan is as well? That's where he's going to be most likely positioned.
Yeah, I do too. I agree with you. He had trouble in the Rebel, and that's why I was a little farther back in that race. But yeah, I think he's going to be pressing. And again, pressing could be 7th through 12th, but I think he will be mid-pack, kind of like mid-pack runners in the Derby. Yeah, can Keith get him and keep him out of trouble? Getting to the rail saves ground, but then you've got to bounce your way out of there or take a chance and stay on the rail when you turn for home. So there's a lot to overcome. Again, Tracy's notes about some of the challenges I totally agree with, but again, that's why you're going to get 20-1. If Joel Rosario were the jockey, you wouldn't get 20-1. So that we're talking about taking a shot on a long shot if you play him to win, but he could certainly hit the board and blow up some of the exactas trifectas.
Yeah, and a reminder, everybody, it's a good spot to remind everybody. We're gonna put together some picks that'll be on our social media pages coming this weekend, and you'll get an idea where we're going to use these horses. But we think these horses are a factor and definitely are going to be a factor in the exotic wagering, and so we'll be using these horses in different ways. So the next horse, Tracy, we're going to let you go first, and it's Honor Marie. And give us your thoughts on Honor Marie.
Yeah, Anna Marie, incidentally, there's a little bit of a Oaklawn connection with Anna Marie. If you remember the Inside Connection tip sheet that was put out at Oaklawn for many, many years, the daughter of the person who put that out for all those years is part owner in Honor Marie. Her name escapes me at the moment, but anyway, there's a little bit of connection there to Oaklawn. But as far as really impressive race in the Louisiana Derby back on March 23rd. Just lost to Catching Freedom just by a length, which Catching Freedom should be one of the favorites in the Derby. And came up with some pretty good numbers. Is a closer, so she's going to be back there in traffic, and that's always concern in the Kentucky Derby with 20 horses and having to make your way through that traffic. I don't know that I would have her in as a win ticket, but she's going to be longer odds, and I'd probably like to have her underneath somewhere on my ticket. Don't know much about the trainer and the jockey, Ben Curtis. But Ben Curtis is, won 32 races this year, 16%. So he does know how to win. And apparently, the trainer has a lot of confidence in that jockey. So I believe this would probably be his first Kentucky Derby, I would imagine. I don't remember him in any other derbies in the past. Has had a couple of really good works at Churchill. His last work was a bullet work at 59 seconds at 5 furlongs. So anyway, I think she's going to have an outside shot.
Well, let me just, before we kick it to Mike, you mentioned the works at Churchill and everything. This horse has hit the board every time. In fact, finished in the exacta in all 3 starts at Churchill Downs. So he is very familiar with the track. And Mike, give us your thoughts about Honor Marie.
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, Ben Curtis raced overseas in England and is one of the better jockeys over there. Just decided to move his tack to Fairgrounds this year. And you hit what I was going to say, Scott, that two wins and a second at Churchill. They always say this, but Churchill, horses like it or they don't like it, and this horse obviously will like Churchill. He is a closer. I'm in general not big on closers in the Derby. They rarely win if they're not on the lead at the 8th pole. But and that race at Louisiana Derby it wasn't a fast pace, but it helped set up for closers a little bit. So that was in his favor. But he ran a good race. He was a pretty solid 2-year-old, winning the Kentucky Jockey Club, which is a grade 2, kind of the last good route race of the year. So I agree. Again, 20-1. These are the kind of horses we've talked about that you got to figure out which ones you like the best and get them in your exactas and trifectas, help blow up your ticket a little bit.
Okay, sounds good. All right, now it's going to be my turn to go first. We're going to look at Stronghold. And, the thing is, and I don't, well, first of all, this horse did break its maiden at Churchill, so it's familiar with the track. It's got a win over the surface. I think this horse is bred a little short, but the main reason that I like Stronghold was because of the running style that we keep mentioning. This is another horse that figures to be, at least in my opinion, in the mid pack of the group, mid pack in the group as they go down the backstretch. speed figures seem to be improving. I usually shy away from some of these horses that have come from the West Coast, but he did win the Santa Anita Derby. Earlier than that, they ran the Sunland Derby earlier than they used to, and he went over there and won as well there. And so this horse has been very, very competitive. Small fields, granted, but I just like that the way he seems to position himself and get him ready for that stretch run. And so I think that he's going to be a factor. I don't know that he can win, but he did catch my eye. Mike, how about you?
I looked at him at first and liked a lot of things about him. The more I looked at it, one of the things I do for the Derby that I don't do for just day in and day out handicapping is I try to compare the Beyer speed figures to the Briss speed figures. And I go by Briss. I like Briss the best, but obviously Andy Beyer knows what he's doing. And his speed figure out of that race, out of the Santa Anita Derby, is pretty low compared to the others. His 98 Briss isn't bad at all. I love his running style. And I don't think his breeding is all that bad. Go Zepper, won the Breeders' Cup Classic. So again, 20-1 is a horse that, you got to dig deep and see if that's one you might want to include or not. I don't know anything about his jockey, and the research department had closed by the time it was time to look him up. So don't have any info there for you.
Okay. Tracy?
Yeah, Stronghold. I mean, if this was a buy sell, I'd be selling. I don't care for this horse at all.
Uh-huh.
I wish I could just tell you exactly why, but I think it's because, it's coming from Santa Anita. I never trust those numbers over there at Santa Anita coming over to Churchill. They always go against 4, 5, 6 horse fields over there.
Mhm.
He's going to be in the mix with 20 other horses in this one. Uh, I don't know. I just don't like Stronghold at all for the Derby. I mean, he's been competitive every time he's run. I mean, he's obviously a talented horse, but for the Derby, I just don't like it very well. So he's probably your winner. So load up.
All right. Okay. Now to wrap up this session, we're going to take a look at one more horse, and this is from the Brad Cox barn. It's Just a Touch, and we're going to let Tracy start and give us your thoughts on Just a Touch.
Well, Just a Touch is one of the ones I really like for the Derby. Obviously, Brad Cox and Flo up as the jockey is, good combination. Obviously. But the biggest thing is I like the pressing style. He's going to be right up close, doesn't have to have the lead, but can be right behind the leaders. Uh, he ran a really good race in the Bluegrass, just missing to Sierra Leone. He's come back and worked well at Churchill Downs. So I just a lot of things I like. He's ran a couple of races on a sloppy track and did just fine. Won one of those, and his numbers out of those races were just fine. He's got a great post position right there in the middle of the starting gate. So I think he's going to be a contender.
Okay. Mike, any thoughts on Just a Touch?
Yeah. And if you guys listen to us much out there, Tracy and I agree a lot. We handicap alike a lot, but he's one of my top picks also. He's lightly raced, but he's a Justify. And if you remember, Justify winning the Derby was very lightly raced. But he's progressed nicely with not only the distance of his races, but his speed figures. The Bluegrass was an extremely fast pace, and we're going to talk about the winner of that race in a minute. But the setup was perfect for a closer. But one horse hung on in second, running a length out behind the leader the entire way, and actually took the lead at the top of the stretch, putting that front runner away, and then got passed by a strong closer. Anytime I see a pressing horse that can hang with those kind of pace figures and that kind of hot race, I'm going to like in his next race out. Now, he can get cooked in this one too, and you got to trust Flo that this horse will keep learning and learn to rate a little bit better. but at 10-1, I really like him in the Derby as a win candidate too.
Well, you guys have covered it all. I mean, here's what I liked about this horse, and he was one of my top picks as well. Or excuse me, he is bred very well. He seems to be improving. He's from the Brad Cox barn. He's got flow. And what mostly I liked and what I saw was that speed figure that he posted and how he performed in that bluegrass that was a very, very fast pace. And, you know, maybe he has gotten, maybe he got enough out of that race where he won't get cooked this time. Maybe he'll be able to go ahead and complete it. And maybe that Flo has learned enough about him. Brad has learned enough about him that they will make just the slightest adjustments on how they approach the race, and give him the let's say advantage, but give him the tools or whatever or the strategy to get it done this time. But yeah, I really like Just the Touch, and it's strictly because that he can press and do it against the fast pace. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up pod 1. We're going to come back and do pod 2 and in a little while, and we'll cover 5 more horses. Guys, you got anything to say before we wrap up?
Nope, this is getting me excited. I'm ready to see this Derby.
Ready to go.
All right. We hope you guys can take some of the stuff that we've said today and apply it. And until you see us next time, go fast and win.